The DART board makes it official and will hire Nathaniel Ford as its new president and CEO.
Ford comes to Texas from Jacksonville, Florida, the transportation agency there, where he faced questions over his traveling and his spending. Some board members also question the lack of time they had to vet candidates for the job. Fox 4's Amelia Jones has more from the meeting. Amelia.
Heather, Steve, Nathaniel Ford did not address reporters, but he was here today in Dallas to answer questions from the board behind closed doors. Those questions included concerns about red flags, specifically about personal spending and conflicts of interest. Some board members were satisfied with the answers. Others still had concerns and voted against hiring him. A new CEO and president is taking the wheel at DART. With a 9-4 vote, the DART Board of Directors approved Nathaniel Ford's employment agreement. Most recently, Ford served as the CEO of the Jacksonville Transportation Authority in Florida. His candidacy for the position was met with scrutiny as several red flags surfaced during the vetting process, specifically about personal spending, ridership decreasing, and a potential conflict of interest.
I want to say that I am satisfied that every single issue has been addressed. There's a rational explanation for each of them, and that none of them deserve to be called red flags.
Ford was in Dallas and met with the board during Tuesday's executive session ahead of the vote. DART leaders say the information was sensitive and declined to share more publicly. Some board members were satisfied with the answers. Others still had concerns.
Not having the time to hear this out anymore. I respect the will of the chair and the board to go with 5 individuals, but because of that, I'll be going against it.
Ford actually took himself out of the running in June, but after his resignation from Jacksonville in early July, 3 DART board members wrote a memo to the board chair asking for the search firm to reach back out to Ford. The firm did, and he agreed to move forward in the interview process.
We have seen what he brings to the table as far as funding and innovation and leadership and vision. And at this point, that's what we need. We need a different way of moving forward in a collaborative nature.
Ford's exact salary was not disclosed. It was just mentioned that he is taking a pay cut to come to North Texas. Records show he was making $625,000 in Jacksonville. The board chair defended Ford's candidacy and the search process in a news conference after the board meeting.
He's ran agencies twice as large as DART, and so he has a full, robust knowledge and understanding of transit as a whole, working with federal governments, working with state governments. He's done just about anything that you could ask for out of a transit agency.
Several people did speak during public comment. The majority of them asked the board to delay the vote so they could do more research and vetting on Ford. They also brought up the red flags. Now, Ford will not start in this new role until late October, as he still has some things to wrap up with his role in Florida. One board member noted today that this means Ford will not be a part of the initial discussions regarding the budget for 2027. Heather, Steve.
Amelia, I have a question. It seems like the obvious question that you would have wanted to ask this guy, but he wasn't available, is, okay, so he had trouble with spending, and his board in Jacksonville were questioning him about that. And then he decided to resign from Jacksonville without a job to go to. Do we know if he was going to be fired in Jacksonville, and that's why he resigned? Do we know all what went into that, or is it just tight lips by everybody?
That's a good question, Steve, and we don't know why he decided to resign from Jacksonville. It was mentioned several times that the board chair, as well as other board members of DART, spoke with people in Jacksonville, the several mayors, the current mayor, former mayor, the governor, as well as board chairs on the board of the Jacksonville Transportation Authority. And what they shared was that they, again, answered all the questions and eased the concerns for some of the board members. But obviously, as you heard tonight, some other board members still felt that there were unanswered questions and voted against him. But to specifically answer your question, no, we do not know why, the exact reason around his resignation.